Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus, and in this video I'm going to share how I created these 4 different colored backgrounds for a card design using a few designs from Click Chick Designs. So here is a look at my working file on my screen as I was designing this card, and I'm going to share with you how I did that. So I'm going to come over here to a new design mat, and then I'm going to draw out a rectangle for my card base. It's going to be approximately 4.25 by 5.5. You can simply draw out a rectangle and then come up to the quick access toolbar, or on the right hand side the transform panel with the 3 rectangles with the line through it, and the second tab at the top is your scale tools. I'm going to use the quick access toolbar at the top. I have unlocked it so that I can change the width and the height separately. So I'm going to type in 4.25 tab and then 5.5 and hit enter. It's going to adjust to my card size. Now I can lock that again. It's going to keep it that size. Even if I change it, it will change proportionally now. And then the next thing I'm going to do is this is going to be my template, or actually the size of my card when I'm finished with it. But now I have the template to design within. So I know what the size for my design. I'm going to come over here to the library tab, and I'm going to grab this abstract bloom stencil by Click Chick Designs. So I'm going to double click on it and it should bring it in on my mat. So this is a 12 by 12 or it's an 8.5 inch stencil. In this case, I want to use these inside pieces. I'm not going to use this as a stencil, but I'm going to turn it into a background. So what I want to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is come up here to the fill color panel on the quick access toolbar. The first section is your fill color. I'm going to turn that transparent. Now, I'm also going to adjust my page size to 12 by 12, just so we can see this a little bit easier. Taking the color out can help you when you are working with compound paths, which is the next step we are going to make. Essentially, this design is made up of little tiny pieces that make up this flower shape of the design that is made into a compound path. What we are going to do is we are going to break this apart, and I will include additional links in the video description below for more information on this. But it is a really cool tool to be able to use. So I'm going to release the compound path, and then when I do, what you can see is that all of these little pieces now have a selection box around them. This means that all of these are individual pieces. I'm going to click off of it for right now. So I'm going to, as an example, the outer edge of that is an individual piece. I don't need that for my purpose. I'm going to click on it and press delete. Now on these edges here, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see this a bit closer. I don't necessarily need these edges, and this is going to be completely up to you. So I'm left clicking and rubber band selecting around all of this. Now I do not want to select the tops here, so I'm being careful what I select. And undo is going to be your best friend if you do select something and press delete, and it deletes something you don't want it to. So I'm just going to work with this file. I want the full flower design. So I'm just going to, again, rubber band select, left click and drag across these over on the right side, press delete, and then I can come in here and I can select these a little bit more precisely, hold my shift key down and click on these individual pieces. I don't need those for what I'm working with. And I can do the same thing along the bottom. Rubber band select, delete. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the left side. And then select these individually so I can get rid of them. And then I'm left with a full flower pattern. And I can work with that for my background. Press delete, and I have my pattern design. I'm going to select all of this, and you can see all of those little pieces are individual pieces. I can group it together, right click and group, or Control G, and then it's all going to work as one piece. They are still individual pieces. If I were to open my layers panel over here, it shows as a layer. If I ungroup that, they are still individual pieces. If I right click on it and choose Make Compound Path. Let's see, first off, I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to open that layer. You can see each one of those is named polygon. So there are all these individual pieces. If I right click on this and choose Make Compound Path, it's going to combine all of those into one object. So they are no longer individual pieces. I can still play around with it and work with it and still break that compound path if I needed to. So that's a little bit of extra, more than you needed to know, or more than I plan to share. But I don't need this big file. So I'm going to choose Release Compound Path. It's going to break those up again. Let's zoom out here just a bit, and I'm going to fill this with some color just so you can see it on the screen. And then I can decide, what do I want? I don't need this whole thing for my background, so I can left click and drag across some of this to select it and press delete. And then come back in here. Let's just do some more on the right hand side. And every pattern that you work with may be a little bit different. And that was a little bit too much. So I'm going to press delete, and I probably don't need the bottom here. So we'll just do that. I'm going to zoom in here and select these individual pieces. And it's a little bit easier to select pieces when you have an object filled with color, because you can click anywhere in that object and it's going to select it. So I'm just going to delete those. So that gives me kind of a pattern. And each time, this could be different for each person, or each time I create this, I may delete different pieces of it. So it can give it a unique look and it's a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is left click, drag across everything. And then now I can right click and choose Make Compound Path. And this is going to bring that in, and it is now one layer. So I'm not working with individual pieces here. Now is a great time to save your file. Save. And I'm just going to name it Card Background 2. And then what I can do is bring in my template. I'm going to scale this down just a little bit to fit on my design and decide how I want this placed. I'm going to use the Align tools with both of the objects selected and make sure that's centered. And then another thing I can do is come up here. I'm going to take the red line color out. I'm going to turn it transparent, so that gives me a better idea of my design without the red cut lines interfering. Now let's have some fun with this. So I'm going to come back up to my library. I have searched for Click Chick designs. I love some of the patterns and different things that they design and put out, and I think I really love her designs, because she creates these out of actual physical products. So she's watercoloring and then she digitizes that and sells a digital copy of it. So she has that physical aspect to it. I've watched some of her videos and I love watching them. Just watching her paint, and then she takes that design and digitizes it. So here's one. We'll go ahead and we'll work with this one, because I really like that it has the differences in colors and some white in it. So it's going to give the idea of a opacity or a different background. You'll see that just here in a second. So I'm going to come and double click on, let's go back to Design tab. Okay, nothing is selected. If I have something selected, if I had this shape selected, when I go to click on this pattern in my library, it would fill that. I don't want it to do that right now. I'm going to double click on this. It's going to bring it in onto my design mat. And in this case, it actually brought it in really large. That's fine. I can show you how to work with those. I'm going to come up here to the scale options in the top quick access toolbar. Or in the transform panel, when you click on the scale tab at the top, you also have those same options up here. You can decrease by a percentage. In this case, I'm going to try 33%. It came in at 15 by 19. And then you can see it's at the bottom of my page. An easy way to get it back on your workspace is to simply click on the center to page. Automatically brings that up very easily, very quickly. So I do have this pattern. It's still quite large. Scaling down is not a problem. When you're working with patterns and backgrounds, scaling up is a problem or can be a problem. It can pixelate it. If you saw up here in the top left corner, Silhouette gave me a notice when I opened the file that it was going to be low resolution at that size. So scale down is good, scale up is not always good. So I have this. I'm actually going to Control C, Control V and make a copy and move my copy. Now what I can do, and actually I'm going to do this, I'll do 4 on one sheet of, we'll work with 1. I can make a copy of my pattern at this size. I'm going to show you how to crop and change the design and give it that pattern. So if I place it up here and select both of these, when I come over to the modify panel and choose crop, it's going to take that design in that area. I'm going to press Control G for group so we have a better idea of how that is. And then you can see here, let me zoom in here, you have this pattern. And this is how you can kind of make a faux inked stamped background. You can take a watercolor design such as this from ClickJick Designs, and then you can give it kind of this faux inked look because it's got variances and it has different aspects to it. And what you can do is I'm going to Control C, Control V. You can place this in different sections and get a different look. Now, when you go to crop, I'll show it here on the screen. As an example, if I wanted to try to crop, this is 4 objects total. If I select them all and choose crop, it's going to take it a little bit, and it did work. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it will just crop 1 object. So it's interesting that it did it. Last night when I was working with this, it didn't work that way. So now I have all of these. I would want to left click, drag across this section here, Control G to group. And then what I can do, I'll bring these onto the mat after they're grouped together, or right click and choose group. I want to make sure that they're all working together. Now, the more you have, the more digital data you have on your file, it may take longer to process on your computer. So just be mindful of that, or you may hear your computer running. It really just depends on each user's computer. But you can see here, these are all different backgrounds. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to Control C, Control V on my card background, bring it over here, and I'm going to fill that with black. Maybe we'll see this a little bit better. And then right click and choose send to back. And then what I can do, I can just extend this so we can see these. So now you can see it a little bit better, how you can have this sort of inked background, and it's like this gradient. You can do all kinds of different things. I'm going to bring in 1 more. Let's make a Control C, Control V, and just move over here off the mat. It's always a good idea to save your file along the way. So I'm going to click save. It's going to take it a couple seconds. And it's always a good idea to make copies of your original. So even though you filled it with a pattern, there are ways to go back, but having an original copy of that background and that design is always a good idea. So we'll just come up here and I'll choose a different pattern, and we'll get a different look for this. And you can see that I have all kinds of patterns. I really love the style that they do and how it's created. I think that's what attracted me to it in the first place. I will put a link in the description below for ClickJick Store as well. So let's just scroll through here and let's just select this one. Double click on it. Oh, you know what? There it is. So what happened was this object was selected, as I shared in the beginning. I do it all the time. So that means that it filled with a pattern, but it did not fill with the pattern that I clicked on. Sometimes that happens in Silhouette Library. So what I'm going to do is just hit Control Z. That's the pattern that I picked. I clicked a second time and picked a different pattern. Control Z brings that out. Actually, what I'm going to do, let me show you. Let's click on it. I'm going to make a copy. Let me show you the difference. So if that object is selected, I'm going to use this show media here. Let's see if it'll bring it in. ClickJick Designs is still my search. And then let's find that. So if I fill it with a pattern, it automatically selects the layout for me. Now I can go in and I can change that, or let's find that pattern again. It might have jumped up to the top. Here it is right here. So if I click off of it to deselect it, double click to bring it onto my mat. I'm going to close my split screen. You can see it's large again. I'm just simply going to resize that 33% and then center to mat. Oops, wrong. That's fit to window. Center to page. Okay, so we brought it in here. You can use the fill color, or you have a little bit easier time or options of seeing where this pattern is. I'm going to right click and send to back. And it does it in a little different way. So this is a larger size versus this took that whole pattern, the large pattern size, and it put it into one design. So I could come over here and I could open the fill pattern window. And this is a lot of additional stuff I hadn't planned on showing you, but that's how it is. Once you get started, it's going to take a little bit because I have a lot of fill patterns. Once you get started with things, it really just one thing leads to another. And you can see here, even just from these 5 designs on the screen, there are so many options that you can do even with just one pattern. So you have options here for pan pattern, scale. So if I scale this up, you can see how it's going to change. And the colors are different there too. Let's make sure I have that right, the pattern that it was. I chose this one. Maybe that wasn't, oh, hold on. That would be why. So double click on this and bring that in. Okay, there we go. Make sure to select the right pattern. I'm going to scale that down again and bring that to my page. That would be the color difference. But now we have more options, except we don't, because I had the square selected and it filled it with that pattern. So send to back. So in this case, you could, now we should have that same color. So I have all these different options here where I could put this pattern. And I can scale it up just a little bit. I know I said scaling down is good, scaling up is a problem. Since this opened at such a large size, I do have wiggle room there to be able to scale it back up because the original size opened large. So let's see here, I'm going to make a copy. And then this left click and I'll crop that. It'll take it just a second because that's a lot of data for my computer to work with, just because it's a pattern. So group these together real quick and we can see the differences here. So you can use a pattern on top and crop it, and you have a little more control. You can see a bigger picture of it than over here where you would use the fill pattern, and you can adjust your scale, give it a different look. That you can see how that changes. And then you can adjust the angle or pan pattern, and you can give it a little bit different look. So sometimes it can make a difference in the pattern. And let's see, if I use this as an example and give it a little bit different fill that has, okay, so if I use a fill, sometimes it can be affected in what that pattern looks like, or the scale, the size of the pattern. In this case, it actually just scaled it to what I had before. So sometimes when you use fill pattern, it automatically determines the scale of that when it fills that pattern, versus you deciding when you are working with a full pattern and then cropping it to that. So I'm going to fit to window here And you can see I have a lot on my computer, and that is having a little bit of a delayed reaction with the movement on my computer. I know this is because I have a lot of patterns, digital data, on this file right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file, and then I'm going to come back to my working file once it is saved. It's got to save all of that data. And these are the original designs that I was working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these designs, Control C, and I'm going to set this up. I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to set it up on a letter size sheet of paper. And it is a printable pattern, but here's a trick. So let's move this out of the way. If you are working with a letter size sheet of paper, you can get 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card fronts, card bases, whatever, card fronts or inside of cards. You can get 4 of those out of a letter size sheet of paper. I'm going to show you that on the screen. Yes, it is a print, so you will be printing through your printer, but you don't necessarily have to do a cut with your machine. Sometimes it's easier not to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over on the right hand side to my rulers, going to grab a ruler, and I'm going to drag it to 4.25. Then I'm going to come to the top, and I'm going to grab a ruler, and I'm going to drag it to 5.5. So now what I have is I have 4 card bases, and I can utilize that full page for a printed design for my card backgrounds, since the background is going to be white. When I bring this in, so I'm going to make some copies of this card base and place it over here, and another one down here, and I can work on placement here in a second. Oops, wrong design. Control, okay, make a copy. So let's just start with this bottom one down here. When I bring this over to my guides that I pulled from my ruler, you can see that it's snapping to those guides. That is an automatic default. Once you pull a guide out, your designs will snap to those guides, only if there's guides on the screen. This is great because it helps me to align this to my where I want it on my card design or on my page. So I'm going to left click. Since these aren't aligned yet, I'm going to come up here to my align tools and just align center. I plan to place a sentiment at the bottom, and you'll see that in the finished photos. So I'm keeping this design towards the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to center, and I'm going to bring this in here, and it snaps. I love when they are needed. I love snap to guide or snap to grid. I will also put links in the description for that as well. I did a live tutorial on tools in Silhouette that can be annoying but are really useful when you want to design with them. So just place your designs how you like them for your card bases. Now, if I come over here to send, you can see that it cuts out those 4 quadrants. You could try to do this on your machine, but what you're going to end up with is slivers of paper everywhere. So I'm going to print this sheet, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paper trimmer and just simply cut at 4 1/4 and at 5 1/2, and I have 4 card bases out of 1 letter size sheet of paper. Here's a look at the printed page with the 4 patterns on it. I do feed through my rear tray on my printer. I then set up a print and cut for some happy birthday sentiments and sent those to print and cut on the Silhouette. So I have all these card pieces ready to go. I do find holding my mat up when it is registering helps with my print and cut accuracy on the Cameo 5. That way the mat is completely flat and not bent. Now, once I have all my pieces, so I have my background here, I am going to grab my paper trimmer, and I'm going to use that to make my card backgrounds. I have pieces already cut out that I had used in this month, and these are the extras. And then I have the sentiments that I just print and cut as well. So I'm just going to set those over here, and very easily take my paper trimmer. I have an 8.5 sheet of paper. I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4, and then 5 1/2, and 5 1/2. And now I have 4 card bases, different patterns, endless possibilities. Get you on camera here. I can add a sentiment upside down. And then I can start adding together some different elements, mixing and matching for my card. Using extra bits that I already have, I'm going to pop those up with some foam tape. Now, while I was assembling the cards, I had another thought I wanted to share with you. So you could make these 4 card backgrounds out of 1 sheet of cardstock, and then you would have to add them to a card base. It works, you'd end up with 4 cards. Or another option is you could take 2 sheets of cardstock, move your designs around just a little bit. So I'm going to place the design on the right hand side of this card here, and then I would print this. So my printed background is already on my card base. It eliminates 1 layer on that card. And I would cut this apart at the 5 1/2 inch mark and score at the 4 1/4 inch mark. And I have my card base already. Here's a look at those cards printed. Now I am using the background that we created in the class with the purple pattern. You could also bring this down in here, and I'm going to center this. And then you would have a vertical style card. You would cut at the 4 1/4 mark and then score at the 5 1/2 inch mark. 2 sheets of cardstock, 4 card bases, or 1 sheet of cardstock and 4 patterns. Let me know in the comments below what you would choose to do. Now here's a look at the finished cards with the sentiments and the flowers added to it using foam tape to give it some dimension. I think I like the placement on the left-hand side better, and that's just something that I played around with as I was putting those together. So there's a close-up look. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments below this video. Find additional resources below the video as well. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.